Hi there, Steve Kaufman here. Let me get my little blue snowball a little closer. I'm going to talk a bit about Pimster, but before doing that, I just wanted to make a video that's kind of off the subject of language learning, except it deals with the subject of words. And in this politically correct age, words mean some things to some people and something quite different to other people. Recently, there was an article published in an Indo-Canadian magazine here in Vancouver called the Surrey, that's an area in the greater Vancouver area, the Surrey Link, not L-I-N-G-Q, but L-I-N-K. And the article is written by a Dr. Sawraj Singh, chairman of the Washington State Network for Human Rights and chairman of the Central Washington Coalition for Social Justice. Human rights and social justice. Now, this eminent defender of everything that's good in the world writes an article where he basically insinuates that the Americans are somehow spreading cancer to Hugo Chavez and a number of other Latin American leaders. Doesn't quite explain how this is being done, but suggests that it's very much possible because historically the Europeans have done nasty things. I should say that the title of his article is Racism, Capitalism, and Zionism Are the Worst Cancers Affecting the World. All right. But I thought the most interesting comment in his article was that the reason why Zionism and Israel is so strongly supported by the U.S. is the answer can be found in American history. The American whites are different from their European ancestors, he writes. The bulk of American whites were made from, well, won't worry too much about his English, the bulk of American whites were made from the people who could not make it in Europe. They were underachievers. The other category were the criminals and undesirable people who the Europeans wanted to get rid of. America, for all practical purposes, was considered a penal colony, blah, blah, blah. The Jews, therefore, given this very undesirable gene pool of the white population, it doesn't specify if these are Scottish, Irish, Italian, Ukrainian, German, whatever, nor when they arrived, in the U.S., but as a result of this weak gene pool, he doesn't use the word gene pool, but he says because the white immigrants were underachievers, the Jews were and still are able to monopolize most of the academic and intellectual demanding positions. It is very interesting to compare the percentage of Jews amongst doctors, attorneys, university professors, and scientists in America to any European country and even to Canada. The truth is that the Jews are represented in far greater numbers in these professions than their population in America. Yeah, that's probably true. The Jews, as well as people from East Asia, seem to overachieve in academic pursuits, education mama, whatever the reasons might be. If Mr. Singh, chairman of the Washington State Network for Human Rights, and defender of social justice, knew anything about history, he would know that the Jews, who were also overachieved in Europe, were wiped out by Hitler. And that's why their numbers are so small. But the biggest thing of all is that when he was challenged, or the Surrey Link paper was challenged for printing such garbage, the editor-in-chief, or whatever he is, a certain Mr. Dillon, said, well, this is just an opinion piece. And people write all kinds of nasty stuff about us Sikhs, and nobody ever worries about it. Are you kidding me, Mr. Dillon? If a newspaper in Vancouver wrote an article saying that the Sikhs came from some kind of an underachieving gene pool, and that's why they're all berry pickers, or words to that effect, all hell would break loose. Whereas here, the leading and oldest and longest established Indo-Canadian newspaper can print that all of a certain category, it happens to be Europeans or whites not otherwise defined, but let's pick another group, any group, and say that they are all underachievers, and that's why they do poorly relative to some other group. They can get away with it. And then they whine about how badly they're treated all the time. It is so annoying to hear the constant whining from these groups that have come to this country who are better treated here than they were in their own country, where the employment opportunities are far more open as minorities to them than any minority would have where they are. If we talk about the Sikhs, try to be from another province in India and move into the Punjab and see how well you're looked after. I've heard that from our Sikh taxi drivers here who tell me about the blacks moving into the Punjab. So, fact of the matter is, people are people. People have prejudices. People don't like certain other people. All of that is fine. What really annoys me is this kind of double standard whereby the chairman of the Washington State Network for Human Rights and chairman of the Central Washington Coalition for Social Justice can write in the most prestigious Indo-Canadian newspaper and basically categorically say that all the whites were of some kind of an inferior stock, and that's why the Jews do so well. I mean, come on, let's get serious here. I hope someone takes them to a human rights tribunal. They should take Mr. Singh to the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal. Of course, they would never be heard. Never be heard. Whereas if a mainstream magazine were to print anything closely, approaching this kind of scurrilous screed, they would be for sure taken to the Human Rights Tribunal. Anyway, what can you do? I'll get back to language learning.